Do not adjust your set. Yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome into our Friday, November 23rd edition of Game Time, our high school football webcast here at the Tennessean. I'm Maurice Patton with Chip Cirillo. We've got Division I high school football state semifinal action coming up tonight. Probably the biggest one in the area is Maryville at Siegel, and that takes us to our cover boy this week, Brent Stockstill, the Siegel quarterback. Chip put that feature together for us. Chip, Brent's gonna have an interesting evening, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking for him. He partially tore his ACL in last week's win against Riverdale, so a lot of question marks surrounding him. I guess he's, from all indications, he's going to try to give it a go. Maybe have a little brace. Probably be kind of limited into what he can do, and it's got to be driving him crazy. I think his dad had a similar thing where he had to play with a knee injury, and you just feel bad for the kid. And I guess the same thing happened to Riverdale against Maryville last year. Their quarterback got hurt for this game, so it's like the curse of Murfreesboro.
Yeah, it's really a tough situation, as you said. Dylan Woodruff hurt his knee against Oak Ridge in the quarterfinals, and Riverdale had to go with a backup, Andrew Dale, in this round and against Maryville at Maryville. And like you were saying, you hate it for a kid. Well, you hate to see any kid get hurt, but to see a kid like Brent get hurt, he's meant so much to that offense. I think he's thrown for about 2,200 yards, run for another 6. So his mobility has really been a key in that offense this season. And for them to have to go into the biggest game in that program's history without their trigger man really kind of changes things. Like you said, I think he's going to try to give it a go, probably a game time decision. But as you said, he's going to be limited if he is able to go. And so he's certainly going to be at less than 100% for them, and Maryville's tough enough when you've got all your bullets. When you take a guy out of the mix, or when you limit a guy like a Brent Stockstill, it really does make things a lot harder for you.
Yeah, they're probably the last team you want to be short-handed for, so you want everything that you have in your arsenal to be out there, and that's got to be driving Coach Wyatt crazy. But I mean, football's there's a lot of injuries in football, and T. Martin was hurt. Their big receiver was hurting recently as well. I think he's okay now, but unfortunately, that's part of it's a contact game. That's part of it.
Yeah, with Brent being limited, if at all, it puts a lot of pressure, I would think, on their junior tailback, Denzel Harding, who has really had a nice season for him as well. Makes him a little bit more one-dimensional, but this is a kid who rushed for about 1,200 yards, scored about 20 touchdowns this season. So, you got to feel pretty good about their running game. It's just that, again, when you take out such a vital part of it, as Brent has been all year, it kind of changes the game for them quite a bit. A couple of other big games we've got tonight. Obviously, they're all big at this point of the season, but CPA Milan in the Class 3A semifinals. CPA stayed unbeaten last week by going over to Cheatham County and beating an unbeaten team 37-21. They get a Milan team that they lost to last year 16-14 at Milan. This year the game is up here, and a lot of those kids over there really have last year's game on their mind, apparently.
Yeah, I actually covered the game last year, and again, we go back to another quarterback injury was a huge factor in that game. CPA's Albert Mitchell broke 3 bones in his foot. At the time, they thought it was just a toe injury, but it was actually more serious, 3 broken bones. And he had a real good first half in that game, and they just weren't quite the same when they didn't have him. And so they really they feel great to get another shot at him. And Milan's one of those West Tennessee powers. It seems like I think they've been in the semis 8 of the last 10 years, which is just remarkable. And they're just like a machine. They just keep coming back. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. Albert Mitchell and Chase Smith, good 1-2 punch. And I'll tell you, CPA's defense really impressed me last week because Cheatham County had 3 1,000-yard rushers, and Mo, you were at the game, and they really shut them down for the most part.
They really did. They really ran to the ball well, really pinched down inside and kept those guys from getting started, really. All three of them, Potts, White, and Sweat, they held all three of those guys really in check. I think Potts wound up with 70-something yards, but neither White nor Sweat was really able to get much going on. And like you said, credit the CPA defense. And as you mentioned, Mitchell and Chase Smith both had big games last week. Albert threw for 219 yards and 3 touchdowns. Chase ran for 185 yards and a pair of scores, and they're going to have to be balanced like that again this week against a Milan team that, as you said, has been traditionally, perennially one of the top teams in West Tennessee. They won this game last year, went to the finals, and lost to CAK. And like we said, I think CPA is really kind of had this matchup as a dream matchup for themselves since they got into the postseason. So they really look like they're kind of rounded into shape. Another big game tonight. Beach goes on the road. I think this will be their first road game of the postseason. They go down to Jackson Northside. Both those teams undefeated at 13-0, both number 1 seeds in their quadrants. Beach won what had to be one of the best high school football games in this area in a long time last week, beating Northeast 44-43.
Yeah, what an incredible game. You almost feel bad for Jalen Reeves-Maven. He had 300 rushing yards in all 3 playoff games, and they ended up losing by 1. But yeah, Beach Northside, that's number 1 versus number 2 in the rankings. So that's as good a matchup as there is. I think both teams are averaging in the mid to high 40s, so it could be a real high scoring game. And one cool thing about this round, we have 3 running backs that have a chance to break the state rushing record. And Jared Warbritton from Huntington, he's the closest, and 300 and something yards from it. Mark Dodson of Whitehaven, we just found out he's almost as close. And then Jalen Hurd for Beach, if he was to get 2 more big games, he could break it. So I can't imagine that's happened very often to have 3 backs having a chance at it.
Yeah, and I think midway through the season, coming into the second half of the regular season, I think the question wasn't if Jalen Hurd would break the record, but by how much before he sustained a shoulder injury that kind of limited him down the stretch of the regular season. And he's really going to have to get after it. First, they've got to win this ball game probably and get another game for him to have a shot. I think he's got about 2,550 yards right now. The record, 3,068, was set last year by Powell's Dashawn Mobley, who's now at Kentucky. So, any of those guys to get there, 3,000 yards in a season is pretty remarkable, as you said. And to have 3 guys with a legitimate shot at it really speaks to the year that those 3 guys have had.
Yeah, 3 in 1 year. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Hey. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Get out and see a high school football game tonight, and thanks for joining us here on Game Time.